It is Armistice Day today, and later we'll honour the 2-minute silence at the 11th hour in remembrance of the men and women who lost their lives serving in the 2 world wars and other conflicts. Yesterday, the King led commemorations at the Cenotaph in London, where thousands of veterans and civilians gathered to pay respects. Charles was also joined by other members of the royal family, including the Prince and Princess of Wales. However, Queen Camilla was unable to attend due to a chest infection. Kate could be seen watching the ceremony from the balcony of the Foreign Office. There she is, alongside the Duchess of Edinburgh. It was her first official appearance following her cancer treatment. It's also the time of year when we get to see all the living prime ministers. So we had Starmer, and then another 8. You got Major, Blair, let's have a look. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch and Ed Davey to the left of Keir Starmer, Boris Johnson. There's Theresa May, Cameron. Truss will be in there somewhere. Basically, that's 9 living current and ex-prime ministers. That must be the most we've ever had. So, to serious matters and more important matters, it's a powerful, powerful day.
It's incredibly powerful, and I think it's so fantastic that we have traditions where we do actually remember those that have fought for the freedoms of this country, the freedoms that we today take so for granted.
I was going to mention that other party leaders were in attendance, and there's a bit of a stir around Nigel Farage because he says he was blocked from laying a wreath at the Cenotaph. And the reason is his party's got 5 MPs, including him, and you need 6. That's a rule that no one knew existed. It's just a shame that that's sort of kicked off yesterday, Gemma.
Do the DUP...
They do. The DUP did have one, I think, because...
They had 5.
They have 5 members of parliament, but they were allowed to lay a wreath because they had... It's a really good point. Because they had... it was something to do with particular representation with each nation.
Yeah, each nation.
I think it's disgraceful, personally, that Nigel Farage wasn't allowed to.
Really?
Clearly, we're able to make some arrangements and sort of disregard the 6 MP rule for the DUP. So why not for a party that got 4 million votes, more votes than the Liberal Democrats?
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point.
And they were able to lay a wreath.
Does it matter in the grand scheme of things, though?
It may not, and I don't know where that story came from, and I didn't hear whether he spoke directly about it.
He did on Twitter.
He did he?
Yeah,
of course he did.
Nigel
I just don't know whether it's the day for it, that's all.
No, it's not.
I don't know.
And I've had enough as well of people saying, should he be our special envoy to the States? Like, no, he's not in the government. It'd be really weird. Really odd.
Hang on a minute. He gets on well with Trump, and we desperately need a trade deal. Or, as Kemi Badenoch says, we're going to end up being kneecapped.
Well, but in the past, when a trade deal's come up, it's all chlorinated chicken and would absolutely screw British farmers anyway. And does he have his ear?
Let consumers choose in the first place. But I think the point is, Trump and Nigel have direct access to one another. They are friends.
He's told us that a lot. I haven't seen one picture of them together recently.
Well,
I've seen many pictures of them together, but I guess that's not the point. I agree with you that Nigel isn't in government, and I think that the point really here is this 6 MP rule really worth it when we've got a political system that effectively means that Reform got 4 million votes and only 5 members of parliament?
Come on.
And the Lib Dems got significantly less.
But on that
votes.
basis, Hillary Clinton won the 2016 American election. I mean, there's always going to be a kink in the system, right?
Parliament, but we are talking about laying a wreath to remember those people.
It just doesn't matter. It's not about him today.
Yes. I agree.
It is not about Nigel Farage today.
It is about all those party... Well, part of it is all those party leaders being able to represent their own constituents and represent the
Well, he can go
parties.
to Clacton for the first time in 6 months, whatever, and go and put the wreath down there.
But you're right, 4 million's a lot, and as you say, it's more than the Lib Dems. I should say, it's a bit of news from Belfast. The First Minister, Michelle O'Neill, became the first Sinn Féin leader to lay a wreath for remembrance. So we'd see her do it there. And I think it's laurel that they lay. She spoke about her decision to do so afterwards.
To remember all those people that lost their lives in the horror of conflict, and it's okay to have different perspectives and different experiences of the past, but for me this is about the journey that we're on towards a shared future.
And there was a bit of eruption on the unionist side about that, about whether, when she says all those who've lost their lives in conflict, she's including in her mind IRA members, but then do we want to get into that as well, you know?
I think, as you say, it's just a day of respect and everybody just needs to, because...
It was also a big moment for her to go to it. Remember, there was a bombing at Enniskillen in 1987.
Yeah.
And so now you have Sinn Féin at a cenotaph paying respects. That's a big moment, isn't it?
You could look at that as real progress.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, I was going to say it is progress. It's a big moment. I mean, obviously we know that the Northern Irish Assembly hasn't sat for a while, and then they sat again, and then they were disbanded again. So there's been a lot of political turmoil in Northern Ireland, even in recent history. So I think it is a huge step to see the leader of Sinn Féin effectively come together with all of those people. And actually what it does show, Jeremy, is that on this day, on Armistice Day, and yesterday when they had the Remembrance Sunday, they were able to actually come together and disregard all of their political differences and come together and remember those that fought for this great nation.
Yeah, you don't ever want it to go political. Yesterday in particular, and I remember in the early 80s, Michael Foot was the leader of the Labour Party, and he was accused by the Conservatives of wearing a donkey jacket to the cenotaph and disrespecting it. And actually, over time, people took a second look at his coat, and it's not one of those things with plastic shoulders, he wasn't wearing that. And actually it was all very, very undignified for the whole day to be overshadowed by that. And petty, you're right.
The First World War or the Second World War, where they had the ceasefire on Christmas Day and played football, the Germans was that the First World War? And it's stories like that where you just...
If it's true, that's always been thought to be maybe an urban myth, but where they played football across the trenches. Yeah. But it would be nice to think it happened.
But the senselessness of war, when you look at it ideologically, and the amount of stuff that's going on in the globe right now, so it's an even sadder day.
Well, later on we'll talk to John Nichol, who's written an amazing book about who is actually buried in the tomb of the unknown warrior, because there is an actual body in there. And he'll join us, and we'll observe remembrance, of course, today on the 11th of the 11th.